Hello, and welcome to another rousing round of unpopular wedding opinions. I'm your host, Jamie Wolfer, and today I'm going to talk about why faux flowers can kick rocks. Respectfully. There's this idea that going with faux florals is more sustainable, which is a noble thought, right? But also highly inaccurate. I don't know what it is. Okay, we should also state for the record that I don't like fake flowers. I don't like them. I don't think they look good 9 times out of 10. In fact, we did a video a year or two ago on my channel where one of our employees who has actually also a florist, she does floristry professionally. She did that before I stole her over to wedding planning. She still does floristry. So she does both careers simultaneously. She went and tried to pick out the best looking faux florals she could find, and I literally did not like. I hated most of them, okay? There was one bouquet that I got really emotional looking at because I thought it was gorgeous, but it's half dried, which dried is a whole different beast. We'll get into that later. That's so not the topic at hand right now. But suffice to say, if you've watched any of my content, I try to like faux florals. I do, but I just can't. I can't. I have tried for a really long time, and it just seems to me. I literally just bought flowers just to have in my home recently because I love them so much. In fact, there are actually scientific studies that have been done that show that florals and greenery, real ones, can elevate your mood, which I think is wild. I think that's super cool. In fact, wait, I should be careful. I don't know if it's actually used real versus fake in the study, just greenery and florals in general. My assumption is that it would be real ones, not faux ones, but it'd be interesting to kind of go back and look at those. And yes, I've actually literally looked them up. I don't have any study documentation on hand, so you're gonna have to Google that. But I saw them, they exist. Any hoodles. There's this idea that using faux florals is more sustainable, which I sometimes want to laugh at because I'm like, how? Please tell me how you're mostly made of plastic, rose, and usually not post-consumer recycled plastic is more sustainable than something that grew out of the earth. Now, here's where I'm actually going to refer a lot to a website called Silk Stem Collective. It looks like they have collections of faux florals. Okay, so they have different collections. I'm looking at one called the Juno collection right now that has some great textures to them. I really like their greenery. The greenery is where faux florals fall apart for me because usually it's just so dang cheesy. But from what I can see in this, the greenery is great. What is that blue? Is that delphinium? I don't know. It has a really vibrant blue to this collection that I don't buy as much. What is this? Yeah, delphinium. I got it right. Rebecca's such a good teacher. I remembered. Okay, so basically I'm looking at, the Santiago collection. All right, okay, I'm vibing with some of the stuff they have on here. I'd be interested to see some of it in person. I don't hate it. It's not, okay, I don't like that one. It's not that bad. The peonies, I would be curious to see how they look in person because real nice looking florals, like faux florals, are super spendy. Super spendy. And if people are like, no, I'll just go to Dollar Tree and get my florals, we are just on completely different levels of what we want out of florals. But then again, I find florals to be a priority. I really enjoy them. Like I said, I just bought them for my home. So you know where I'm coming from. You know how I feel about florals in general. If they're going to be fake, they got to be good. And if they're good, they're not cheap. So there's this idea that yes, obviously going to Dollar Tree and Dollar General to source your faux florals is going to be cheaper and it's going to feel more sustainable because they don't die afterwards. But the Silk System Collective put together this article, and God bless them for it. There's even sources linked at the bottom of the page of the article. I love them for this. I'm going to be referring to it for the entire time that we're talking today because I think that they did such a fantastic job of putting this together. Oh, the ruscus is cute. Look at that. They have Italian ruscus and it's gorgeous. Okay, their greenery's got me. All right, so basically in bold towards the top of this article goes, reusable faux flowers produce less carbon emissions only if they are reused multiple times. Multiple times. They also put together a look at some of the biggest sources of greenhouse pollution when it comes to fresh versus faux, so you can make an informed decision about the carbon footprint of your event. Some of you might get really excited by hearing the term carbon footprint. Other people might be like, I don't care. And I'm not here to convince you to care about your carbon footprint. But I am here to bust the myth that doing faux florals is better for the environment because it's hardcore is not, right? And they're correct. The only way that this is going to be more sustainable is if it's reused over and over and over again. So let's jump on into some of the production numbers that they have cited here. Manufacturing accounts for over 90% of total greenhouse gas pollution during the lifetime of a faux floral bouquet. Although some faux floral are manufactured from genuine silk, most are created from oil-based plastics, polyester fabric, and latex. Plastic is an energy-intensive material. It is a fossil fuel in another form, so it is no surprise the production phase results in significant pollution. Note, because faux flowers are rarely manufactured from actual silk, this material is not included in this analysis. Okay, so they actually do a really fantastic job of breaking down what this looks like. I'm going to directly, and again, I'm giving all the credit to them for doing all of this research. It's just backing up what I already knew, and they have it neatly packaged into this little material. And by material, I mean article. So if you're watching the video version of this, then you're going to see this graph pop up on the screen right now. And it's carbon emissions by stage. So seeing these side by side is absolutely wild, right? The production of faux florals accounts for the majority of the carbon emissions. While simultaneously the production of the fresh flowers is also the majority, but we also see a giant piece of the pie going to transportation and packaging, whereas with faux florals we see only tiny, why is that my noise for today? No clue. Sorry about your earbuds if you're listening with headphones. A tiny fraction of that is towards transport, packaging, and use. In fact, you can't even really see them. Because the deal is, whether you go for fresh or faux florals, they're probably gonna have to travel a long way to get to you. And Silk Stem Collective breaks this down really nicely because faux florals are obviously not alive. They can take a longer time to get to you, which is fine. So they can travel by a means of transportation that uses less carbon emissions. So in this case, it's most likely gonna be a boat. Fresh florals, however, actually have to be flown in. So then just skyrocketing how much this is affecting things, right? Again, they've got a fantastic graph right here. Gosh, y'all are just doing the Lord's work over here, doing this comparison. Thank you for putting this together for us. The emissions for a fresh flower bouquet versus the faux flower bouquet, truck, plane versus cargo ship, and then truck again, coming to a grand total of how much carbon emissions are at the end of this graph. And if you're just listening to this, the grand total is 1.35 kilograms of CO2 emissions. Haha, look! I remembered sciencey things. And faux florals is 0.09 kilograms. Kilograms? Did I just claim to know sciencey things and totally botch this? Most fresh florals are grown internationally and imported into the US, but domestic flower farms are on the rise. We recommend any couple considering fresh should also take a look at locally grown flowers as an option. There is a guest that we had on the podcast. I actually had her on both Engage and the Union podcast, so the couple facing podcast and the podcast for the wedding industry. And she is a huge advocate of doing sustainable florals. Jen from Urban Marigold, she's fantastic. She actually goes to local flower farmers, and it's just this grassroots movement that's happening in florals. She's based in Southern California, but there are flower growers here in the United States that would love to sell you flowers. I know in California we had incredible soil, so we had the Carlsbad flower fields. There are insane places that you can go get flowers. If you can find a florist in your area that works with local growers, bar none, best option. Hands down, best option. Looks the best, smells the best, has the lowest emissions. Okay? Because as we're seeing in this next graph, if you compare the emissions from transport from a fresh flower bouquet and a faux flower bouquet, it is astronomical simply because of the plane factor. So what do? You cut out the plane. You go local. So if this is important to you, or if you just want to shop local and shop small, find a florist that does this already. And if you fall in love with a florist that doesn't do this already, ask them, challenge them, say, hey, what can we source locally? What can we do here for our local community, for our local city? What nearby business can we support? Are there any growers in the area that we can connect with? Now, a couple of downsides to this is, one, you'll need to be more flexible with your vision. With the greenhouses that a lot of these big growers have, they can kind of create and grow anything and everything at any point in time. It's super easy. They can control the temperature, the humidity, the light, the amount of hybrids they can create. Insane. Lisa over at 50 Flowers, I considered her such a sweet friend to have. Her and I have talked at length about what they're able to do in these greenhouses. And it's insane. It's insane. So they have the ability for basically product quality assurance. That you know the color you're gonna get, you know the size that you're gonna get, you know the quality that you're gonna get because they can control that. If you're dealing with a local grower, they're not growing in these large, ginormous amounts. There's going to be variation to what they can offer. There's going to be color variation, size variation, probably more imperfections in your florals. And that's something that we just kind of have to deal with. You know when you go to the farmer's market and the vegetables look a little bit more wonky than they do at the grocery store? Same story. Additionally, there might be a higher cost associated with it. You might have to pay a premium to get stuff that is locally sourced. It's not mass produced in greenhouses at a really, really large scale, and it's likely an independent grower doing it. So these are kind of the trade-offs that we have to make here. The next kind of area of the argument when it comes to faux florals versus real florals and sustainability is what do they need to be put in? Not packaged in, but the vessel that they're in. So a lot of florists are now trying to move away from floral foam. If you don't know what that is It is a green foam that you soak and you get wet, and you can put your florals into it so they stay in place, which is glorious. It's fantastic. And some of them claim to be more eco-friendly. I haven't done enough research onto that to speak either way to it, but I do know that Rebecca, who works with us, is like, yeah, it's really not that eco-friendly. Like it says that because it's more so than others, but it's not that eco-friendly. So that's the most I can speak to that specifically. But that tends to be the norm when it comes to floral arranging. And that's what's kind of cited in this. The additional plastic form of the floral foam and plastic vials. I don't know if you've ever gotten like a singular rose from the grocery store where it has that little tube at the bottom. It does have some plastics associated with it. If you can find a florist that is willing to design using something called the floral frog, which looks nothing like an actual frog. For those of you who are, visual learners, not the same. So there are two types that I'm aware of. There could be more. There's one that's like a metal disc with metal prongs. It almost looks like the pointy ends of nails sticking up, where you can actually push the stems into the nails to create your overall look. The frog can be small, it can be large. They also can be plastic, it doesn't have to be metal for this, but they are intended to be reusable. That's the whole beautiful intent of them, is that using a frog that looks like that, you can stick the floral stems into. The downside of that is you are limited flexibility-wise in what you can do, but it really does push the florist to get artistic with this and get to know the materials that they're working with to get the best results out of it. So there is a learning curve to it. It's not like all of a sudden you use a pronged floral frog and you're just an artist. It doesn't happen like that. It takes time and effort. The other kind is glass, or again, can be plastic, and it's almost like a little dome with several holes in the top. So you just place the stem in through the hole and it holds it in place. Again, you're limited by the construction of this. It's not the same thing as foam. You can't go in any which direction, and it does have more of a learning curve to use it effectively. But as with the other option, this frog is sustainable. It is reusable. It does require a little bit of a kerfuffle at the end of the evening getting those back. Oftentimes you're renting the vessel itself though, from the florist too, so that doesn't create any bit of an extra headache if you need to figure out getting that back to them at the end of the night. Another thing that can be used is the waterproof floral tape to kind of create a grid pattern over the top of it. Those are not reusable, but theoretically in mass, it's less waste than that of the foam, but I don't know. I didn't do a fancy comparison like Silk Stem Collective did. Oh, you can also do chicken wire. Chicken wire is rad. I love what some florists can do with chicken wire because that's reusable, right? And it's super low cost and they can reuse it over and over and over again. So that's pretty cool. Those are kind of how floral centerpieces are formed, or arbors or cages can be formed using some of those materials. Whereas the faux floral version of those can oftentimes just be glued into place. So we don't have to worry about anything being tossed afterwards. Yes, we're still using plastics a high majority of the time, but it's glued in place and it's reusable. And that is the kicker here specifically, and they point this out. The number of couples that will reuse the same faux florals is the most significant factor when calculating carbon emissions. Here's why. The high environmental cost to produce and transport the faux flowers can be spread out over all the couples that use them, so long as it replaces fresh flowers at their events. That's the contingency here. Silk flowers, plastic flowers, faux flowers are not more sustainable than real flowers. It is simply if they are reused that they will be sustainable. Under average conditions, a faux floral bouquet must be rented only 2.5 times to break even with the climate impact of a fresh flower bouquet. I didn't know that. That's cool. You guys are doing it. This article is fantastic. You guys did great. Sadly, in North America, a majority of purchased faux florals are only used for one event before ending up in the trash. So this is why, if this is your battle cry, rent them. If you really want to do this, rent them. If you want faux florals to keep for a long time, totally get it. That is a great reason to do that. But let's stop with this argument that stem per stem, it's more sustainable, or stem per stem, it's more affordable. That's not the case. Now let's talk about disposal for a sec, because this is actually something that I didn't quite consider until I read it from this article, and I think they put it really, really nicely. Faux florals and greenery cannot be recycled. Most municipal recycling facilities do not have technology needed to separate the various plastics and materials for recycling. At the end of the life, they are often rehomed as decor or kept for sentimental reasons, but this only prolongs the inevitable, disposal into a landfill. Many assume that because fresh flowers are natural, air quotes, they are biodegradable and will break down into dirt once thrown away. This is accurate only if the fresh flowers are composted correctly and allowed to react with air, water, microorganisms that break them down. If correctly composted, fresh flowers turn into nutrients that can be used for other plants, the same way a fallen tree decomposes and nourishes other life. Composting is simple. It can be as easy as cutting up spent flowers and mixing them in with soil on the ground, or putting them in municipal yard waste bins if available. Some wedding venues or florists will even handle the composting for you after the event, which is rad. That's very cool. In reality, just 4% of the cut flowers are composted correctly in the US. A majority end up in the trash. Trash flowers will not be able to break down the same way as composted flowers. Even though a third of the contents of landfills are biodegradable, trash piles are so compacted that the trash cannot get enough oxygen, so it degrades anaerobically, producing methane, which blah, 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 blah. So in conclusion, which one's more green? Well, that depends. If you are planning on only using them for this one event, if you're doing DIY, if you're doing it from scratch, fresh flowers and greenery are by far the more sustainable choice. The last graph that we're going to be highlighting today is this one right here. When it comes to the overall carbon emission per bouquet, I think the fresh flower bouquet lands at about 12.5 kg CO2 per bouquet, and the faux floral single use is over double that. The carbon emission to create one bouquet, one faux floral bouquet, is over 29 kg. That's insane. And the graph does show if you reuse them over and over and over again, this is where we start to gain back those emissions. This is where we start to gain back, that's where it starts to work. And I agree with them. I think this is a fantastic model for couples who are striving to be more sustainable and wanting to really breathe life and breathe financial aid, so to speak, into this area of the industry. Like, if you want a more sustainable industry, you have to start shopping and being more sustainable. So at the end of the day, I mean, weddings are inherently, they can be, if not well and intentionally planned, weddings can err on the side of being quite wasteful. I refuse to admit that weddings are inherently wasteful, simply because I know a lot of couples who do make fantastic sustainable choices, right? Those who strive, like, we don't have to be perfect at this. We just have to do a little bit right. Just start making some slightly different choices. I also am not a sustainable person by nature. I'm cheap, okay? So I'm going to reuse stuff. That makes sense to me. I'm going to make bone broth from home. I love striving to have like a zero waste kitchen because that's cool. Like, I like not throwing stuff away. Now that we homestead, like, there's a whole list of things that I don't throw away anymore. It's wild. My family's always like, are we allowed to throw this away, or are you using it for something else? I'm like, what is it? They're like, onion skins. I'm like, nope, we're saving it. Mama's going to use it for stock. And they're used to it at this point. So I save so much. The amount of random things that are in our freezer. I save apple cores and apple peels for apple cider vinegar. Or not apple cider, it's apple scrap vinegar technically. So I like this stuff. I like creating things from trash, but not like art, or what people call art. That, like, it's art. No, it's trash. You just like found trash and you put it together, and that's silly to me. But I like creating nutrition from trash. Yeah, that's probably a better way of putting it. But the main reason that I started doing anything like that is because it's so much more affordable, right? And then you can guarantee what you're eating and what you're putting into your body, which I'm super passionate about. But I didn't start this journey because it's more sustainable, right? I just didn't. It's just conveniently more sustainable and more affordable. So all to say, if you're still here, God bless you. Okay, that was a long one. But let's stop saying that we're using faux florals simply because they're more sustainable, because that's not the case, okay? It's not. We love them, right? I don't love them. Some people love them. When they're done well, I love them very much. But if you had your heart set on real florals, I stand with you. I understand. I support you. Maybe this episode will inspire you to get a little bit more creative on how you dispose of them or how you source them. I highly encourage that. Make it fun. Make it enjoyable. It's like a trip down to the farmer's market on the weekends. In fact, that could be a great place to find your florals. If there is a floral vendor at your farmer's market, get down there, talk to them, see if you can place a bulk order, see if you can get with them ahead of time. That would be an incredible way to support your local economy and to shop small and to cut down on the footprint, and then just have like a really cool story. Be like, yeah, I got these from a local farmer. Especially if it's organically fertilized, in season, that don't use foam or plastic packaging, and if they're grown outside in the natural elements. So again, you're a little beholden to some seasonality there, but most weddings are in the season where you can find at least some flowers. So that's what we have for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you like the video, jump on down there, hit that like button. Let me know what you are doing for your wedding florals in the comments down below. Silkstem Collective, thank you so much for creating such a well thought out article. In fact, they said that the article is just the beginning. They have a full emission study in the works, and you can email them at support@silkstemcollective.com if you would like a copy. And a full list of their sources is here. Again, this is all their research. I'm literally just pilfering it and commenting on it on the interwebs for our enjoyment. So big shout out to them. They had no idea that this was fostering today's video, but here we are. I don't know why I just clapped. And until next week, bye guys.